And fear of the unknown is the oldest and most powerful version of fear.
There's a force in all of us that science knows nothing about. The force of fear.
Welcome, everyone, to Induced Fear. I'm your host, Oscar. And what better way to start off the new year than with my two loves, horror and the paranormal. And I have with me Mike Kuciak, who is a filmmaker, a writer. You also, I saw, edit as well.
Yeah.
Your things.
Yeah. And
A man of many hats.
I honestly don't know how you don't edit your own stuff. I'm sure that, other people are comfortable with that, but I'm very much I want to write it, I want to direct it, and then I want to cut it.
Yeah.
You have to tell the story 3 times.
Yeah, exactly. I used to, back in the day, I danced. I break danced. And I
Wow.
would shoot videos all the time. And I would always try to work in, how can I work a story into this? Because I didn't just want
Yeah.
it to be like me in front of the camera dancing.
Yeah.
And editing,
Yeah.
I want to say, is the hardest thing.
I mean, it's hard, but it's very engrossing. It's a lot of fun. In some ways, it's the exact opposite of writing. They both still work very similar muscles. You're still crouched over a laptop. You're still, hours go by and the entire thing. But I've found that I am a better writer for having directed. I'm a better director for having edited, and I'm a better director for having written and edited. It's like when you have to when you have to face your own mistakes as a director,
Yeah.
it's like there's no better way to learn than to be like, hey, you're the guy who screwed it up, man. So it's like now you gotta fix it. So you either become a better director real fast, or else I don't know what to tell you.
Well, I mean, first and foremost, I want to say thanks for coming on the show.
My sincere pleasure, man. Yeah, it's fun.
Like I said, when I saw that it was both a combination of horror and then like the paranormal, because the films that you have out right now kind of dive into the paranormal realm. So it's like,
Yeah.
why not? I would love to talk to this guy and see how the brain works when it comes up with stuff like that.
Yeah, well, I've 2 features out, and one is death metal, and that one I wrote, directed, edited, produced. Like I did pretty much everything but craft service and star in it. That's the full top to down. That's my movie, and in a lot of ways, that was very much like kind of my thesis project. It's like, that was that was the shakeout voyage. And From the Shadows, I am a producer on that, and I also wrote it. And, our director also did some writing on it, so like not 100% of the script is mine. But it's all good. But it's like but yeah, it's like filmmaking is by nature a collaborative art form, so it's like that's where it's at. But yeah, I mean, I was on that set. We hashed out the ideas that were essential to the story, did the entire thing. So, and both of them are on Tubi. I mean, they're on a bunch of other stuff. Like Death Metal is on Screenbox. Like both of them you can rent on Amazon if you want to. I have a website called deathmetalhorrormovie.com where like you can buy a signed copy of the DVD of Death Metal, and I've got boxes of them back there. Boxes and boxes. I mean, I've directed a bunch of shorts, and I have other projects that are always like kind of always constantly threatening to get made. So it's one hat. It's big plate, medium plate, small plate.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like for instance, I have a product called Knife that I've been trying to get this film made for a couple of years now, and we actually got really close in 2019, and then a little something called COVID came along and kind of stomped on that. But when we got the band back together, since Death Metal had come out and I directed that, I was able to pitch the producers on the idea of me directing it, because I originally was going to direct Knife, but it was going to be someone else. But now I am directing that, and what I did was I shot a short version, a 3-minute version of it to kind of, kind of be, oh, that's funny, to A, to kind of give like a little, hey, this is my vision for the project, and oh yeah, by the way, I can direct. And also B, to kind of use it as a proof of concept. That knife, the short version, has been doing very well in the festivals for the past year. We've got a big stack of laurels, and in fact, I just got another one like a couple of days ago. So, hopefully that will smooth the way to the feature version of it. That's the plan. But so it's like, besides knife, I've a bunch of others. So I also have like a lot of action projects that are always percolating, but they're harder to get set up because they're a lot more expensive than horror movies. Anyways, that's
Really?
kind of the nutshell.
What was the thing that kind of initially pulled you into that world? Like, were you always like a fan of just being a creative in general? And
Yeah,
was there those
you
likes
know,
of horror movies as younger and now,
yeah,
and just movies in general?
I was the weird kid on the block. I read and watched movies and played Dungeons and Dragons, and eventually I picked up a bass and I was in bands, and it's like for a good chunk of time, yeah, that's what I was doing. As I was playing bass in punk rock and metal bands. And I went to film school just on the off chance I didn't become a rock star and have a backup plan. And a lot of people kind of go to quote unquote Hollywood, and then, to see if it works out. And if not, then, they go back to wherever and take a square gig. And in my case, like film actually was like the backup plan. Well, if I have to grow up, I guess I'll be a filmmaker.
Is that kind of what, like, why you said like death metal was kind of your like thesis, because it kind of melded those two things together for you?
Yeah, because it's like, I had the opportunity to pull a feature film together, and it's like, all right, well, I mean, because I've shot, a lot of shorts, film school on, and, when I had the opportunity to make a feature film, I'm like, you know what, let's actually make sure that's something that I'm passionate about, so it's, I had, weirdly enough, I connected with a guy in Ohio who had a couple of locations, and he's like, I've got a farm and I've got a recording studio. I go, okay. So, and when it comes to filmmaking, like especially independent filmmaking, like free locations are king. That's like, because
Yeah.
otherwise locations can be very expensive. So if it's like, if you have free locations, what you do is you write to those locations. So it's like, in that case, I'm like, because I remember a million years ago, back when I was still playing in bands, I had an old idea about a recorded haunting, a haunted recording studio. So the idea being that this band is like kind of, they're trying to cut an album and like keep hearing weird stuff over the headphones and seeing weird stuff and X Y Z. So that was kind of the basically dusted off that old idea of mine, and that became death metal. So it became kind of the idea of Evil Dead in a recording studio is the kind of the short version of it.
Okay.
Okay,
I
and
kind of picked
by
that up
Evil
when
Dead,
I watched it.
yeah, and by Evil Dead I mean like OG, the first one, and by just really raw, lots of gore, lots of monsters, practical effects, the whole thing, very contained situation. But yeah, it's like we actually, that being said, like we actually got like a lot of production value because one of my big helps early on was Kyle Severn from Incantation. Heard about the project. He's like, "Hey man, are you making a movie called Death Metal in my backyard?" And it's like, "How can I help?" And I'm like, "Well, I mean, how can you help? Do you want me in the movie?" He's like, "Yes." So he connected us with Chris Zitterbart, who was running the Agora, and so like we're able to, for this very contained horror movie, we're able to open it up at like a death metal show, with and we put on in Incantation, got a bunch of other bands together to play a free show, so we have like a giant crowd right there. And yeah, it's like, when you open, you're not thinking that it's like a tiny little indie movie. It's like, this might actually be a real movie.
No, but and it also felt it feels real. Like it feels like you're there because it's real.
Yeah, I also wanted to open on, it's a movie called Death Metal. You need some death metal in a movie called Death Metal. But here's the thing. I've gotten some criticism on the film because there isn't a whole lot of death metal sprinkled throughout. Like almost all the death metal that you hear is like at the very beginning of the movie and at the very end. And that was a very conscious choice on my part due to the fact that I think that metal is cathartic. it releases tension. And I would watch, like, so, for instance, in a couple of Argento's films, like he would put like a metal song over a scene, like Iron Man's Flash of the Blade and Phenomenon. There's a Wasp tune in Opera, stuff like that. And when the metal comes up, like I lose tension. It stops being scary and becomes fun. And I was aiming to, this is a lighter movie, but ultimately I wanted to make a horror movie that was scary. And, I'm like, if, every time I start playing music, it's going to not be scary. It'll be fun instead. And fun is one kind of enjoyment, but I was trying to scare the audience, long story short. But we have a ton of death metal at the end of it. And actually, I actually had more, but I had to do like a really fast edit at the very end. And that's kind of like a small story, a long story, I should say.
Yeah, I can definitely understand, because I think nowadays also, when it comes to like, the bigger studio movies, there's like constant needle drops all throughout the movie that kind of take away the tension, like you're saying. Like it's supposed
Yeah,
to
I
be
mean, there's definitely a place for that. I mean, if like for instance, horror comedy would, for instance, like some people have compared death metal to Deathgasm, and Deathgasm I think is a very effective film, but it's also very clearly a horror comedy, and so you have like a ton of music all throughout. Whereas, death metal, again, it does have lighter moments, but I'm aiming for OG Evil Dead, which is a scary movie. So, that's the idea, man.
Well, I definitely will say that you succeeded on that end.
Oh,
Like
good.
it definitely gives that feeling. I personally enjoyed it, and
Cool.
like I
I'm
said,
glad you like it. Yeah,
yeah,
it was very much, I was shoving as much movie as I could through the budget and the time that I had. And I had a great cast, I had a great crew, I had great practical effects team. There's a lot of stuff to be proud of with that film. So it's like, and again, that was like kind of the shakeout voyage in terms of like, yeah, this is what it's like to direct and again, I've directed a ton of shorts where it's like you bang that out in like one day. And it's like when you like, it's the difference between a sprint and a marathon,
yeah.
it was a deal, man.
So yeah, I think after I watched it, I have a friend in the UK who also he does like movie reviews, all kinds of things like that. And I messaged him and I was like, I'm watching this movie right now, and I was like, the practical effects, I was like, killer, man, killer. I
Yeah,
was like,
I'm glad. Yeah, that was David Greathouse and uh, yeah, Becky Ingram and Joe Gall helped out, and Joe also plays Ramsey in the movie. And as like a side note, he also plays guitar for Mushroomhead. So very busy guy. Yeah, he actually. So I mean, yeah, and he wore a bunch of hats. That guy. Yeah, I mean they killed it, and not a whole lot of time because I actually had someone else lined up to do the effects, and he dropped out at like almost the 11th hour, and like I had to scramble, and like luckily, through the band, through the musicians that I was encountering, and because I had never even been to Ohio, I didn't know anything about Ohio. It's like so, I'm like I need a guy right now. And it's like, how about David Greathouse? And so luckily. David and Becky were able to step in, and that worked out well. So, hooray for us!
yeah,
I mean, it is like a very practical effects heavy project. I mean, it's it's funny when we're on set. I think it's the hanging scene when Johnny, when Devin's head comes off.
yeah.
The actor who plays that character was standing next to me. He was just like, "Dude, where do you get this stuff?" I'm like, weirdly enough, dreams. Like I've dreamt, when you watch the scare scenes in death metal, like almost all of them are dreams that I had at one point in time or another. So I'm like, I'm paying you guys to act out my dreams. Weirdly enough,
Wow, that's crazy.
like the bus going in reverse, I had that dream like 30 years ago, and it just kind of stuck with me. Just stuff like that. So
I mean, those are the best things I think to draw from, is just like from within yourself.
yeah, absolutely, and ultimately. Film is a shareable dream, and a horror movie is thereby a shareable nightmare. So I think if you build the story of a horror movie on nightmares that you've had, you're coming straight from the source. Anyways,
So you've always been kind of a lover of this side, just kind of drawn
Yeah.
into it.
Yeah. I mean, from
Were
day
you
one,
ever a
man.
believer? Since on the show, it's like mainly I deal with people who've had paranormal experiences, things of that
Right.
nature. Are you a believer of that? Because I know some people will come up with these ideas like when creating things, but they're not necessarily a believer that
Right.
these things are going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, I have a set of thoughts, and here is the thing: is I have actually been haunted, and I can tell you that story if you'd like to hear it.
But yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Okay. So, after my mom passed away, she would ring the doorbell. The door, I went to her house, and I'm basically settling her affairs, and the doorbell would ring. And the first time that it happened, I just kind of went to the front door and opened the door. There's no one there. I look around. I don't know, whatever. But it would happen, fairly regularly, and it would happen even when other people were in the house, like the realtor and the cleaning guys and everything else. Like they would come by. I'm like, the doorbell would ring, and I'm like, it's my mom. My mom is ringing the doorbell. Anyway, so I went while I was and again while I was settling our affairs, staying in the house, and so throughout the day, like the doorbell would just ding dong like one time, and then the first night that I was there, at midnight ish, suddenly the doorbell went really fast, dang it, dang it, dang it, dang it, and like I was sleeping on the couch, I'm like, ah, what now?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I jump up, run out, run to the door, throw it open. Of course, there's no one there, and as soon as I open up the door, doorbell stops, right? And I'm not like, I don't think that like I'm being threatened. I don't think it's a dangerous situation, but it's still freaky. Especially because, and it would happen every night that I was there. To the extent that like, finally I'd like call up a friend of mine and who lived nearby. I'm like, dude, I have to get one good night's sleep because this is making me nuts.
yeah,
I've always been a horror nerd. I love reading it and watching horror movies and everything else. But I'm like, actually being haunted sucks. This is terrible. You can't get a good night's sleep at a haunted house. It's awful. Like the whole time I was dealing with my mom's death and everything else, just the lack of sleep was making me, that much more discombobulated. So it's like I had to actually like sleep elsewhere and then like come to the house and like deal with it. Anyways, but the whole time I was kind of semi joking that it was my mom and her
yeah,
spirit ringing the doorbell. I'm like, yeah, it's probably my mom, blah, blah, blah. But here's the thing: is I put the house up for sale, and when you sell a house, we have an inspector comes over, and the inspector went over the house very thoroughly, like down to the millimeter. This guy, and he gave me the entire report. And the whole time he's giving me the report, I'm like, So, how about that doorbell? And he goes, what do you mean? I'm like, there's a short in it, right? It's like, no, doorbell's fine. What are you talking about? I'm like, okay, I guess it was a ghost. Mom, leave me alone. And here's what's of interest too is before my mom passed away, my dad went first, and he would flip the TV on and off and make the microwave go off. And this is back when I was still like really super skeptical. So like I would come and visit my mom for holidays, and I'd walk in the door and like the microwave would start beeping in the kitchen. I'm like, yeah, you're cooking something over there? She's like, no, that's just your father. He's just saying hello. I'm like, okay, ma, whatever. But
yeah,
I just kind of like laughed that off and I filed it away. And then flash forward and my mom passes away and she's ringing the doorbell. And now, between those two experiences, that's when I started to think, and this is very totally theoretical, not a science guy, but this is my general thought on the subject is, ready for this? The brain runs on an electrical current, right? Energy cannot be created or destroyed. So when the body in which that brain's and electrical current goes away, where does that current go? And perhaps it floats around for a period of time and expresses itself through electronic devices. Hence my dad turning the TV on and off and making the
yeah.
microwave beep and my mom ringing the doorbell. So, and again, I don't know if this is 100% true, but it's, these are the experiences I've had and these are the thoughts I've had about those experiences. So there it is, man. But anyway, I'll tell you what, don't live in a haunted house. Like it sounds like it would be awesome, but it's like, it's just really hell on your sleep schedule.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how it was for me dealing with sleep paralysis was another reason why I also enjoyed From the Shadows.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just like, as somebody also like you, I enjoy horror movies,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like, all right, I don't need to have that at my house, though. I don't need to have, the things happening around me. So
Yeah,
it's
and
like,
I have often likened watching horror movies to riding a roller coaster. It's like it's a safe little piece of death that's
yeah,
fun to experience. And it's fun when you stand in line and you know you're getting on a roller coaster and the ride ends and you're all done. But what if, like, you're walking down the street and like guys drive up in a van and throw you into a roller
yeah,
coaster? It's like, that sucks. It's like, what if you live at the amusement park and you have to take the roller coaster at midnight every day? That would suck. So it's
yeah,
like, yeah, it's like it's like when you're a horror nerd, it's like, oh, dude, it would be awesome to live in a haunted house. It's like, no, it sucks. It's
yeah.
terrible.
I'm telling you, man, every single person who has shared any kind of story, they were like, even if they aren't like terrifying, just as you described, it's not like a
Yeah,
haunting thing where something is like lifting you out of the bed or throwing things across the room.
right.
But even then,
Yeah,
it's just like, man, I just want to sleep.
yeah.
I also,
Mom, leave me alone. Let me
yeah,
sleep, please. Quit jacking on the doorbell at midnight.
yeah,
Because I mean, even then, I'm just like, it's like every midnight, and it's very frantic. It was dang it, dang it, dang it, dang it, dang it, and
yeah,
like there was a certain like, you know. Frightened aspect to it or like a tortured aspect to it. And like, I mean, I don't think that she was like fucking with me,
yeah.
or messing with me. I don't know how PG you are in this thing, but
Oh, you
I
can
don't
say
think that
whatever
she
you
was.
want, man.
Yeah, okay. I don't think that my dead mom was fucking with me. Like that
Yeah,
wasn't with her personality. So it's just like, you. Why is she jacking on the doorbell at midnight? It's like in this very aggressive manner. That's like, I mean, is she warning me? Is she like scared? I don't know. So it's like, or
yeah,
maybe again, it's just like this free floating energy that doesn't have anywhere to go, so it just
yeah.
goes
Like
where it's
kind
got to
of
go.
has no control of like
Yeah,
what it's
yeah.
doing.
It might just be amperage. There's no personality attached to amperage, or maybe there is because it's electricity that was fired through a human
Yeah.
neuropathy. So
Yeah, I always
yeah,
tell people we don't have the answers 100% when it comes to like anything like that. I'm just like, we don't know. So whatever you speculate is like whatever is going to help you get through thinking about that and how to
yeah.
process it. Just
Yeah,
go
yeah,
with
yeah.
that.
So yeah, precisely. Like I don't know. Yeah, it's like so. Anyways, that's me and ghosts. So I used to be super duper. I don't believe in anything that I can't touch and see in XYZ. And now I'm just like, I don't know. Maybe there's ghosts.
Yeah.
But and again, like I don't think it's like I don't think it's like a personality. I think it's energy, free floating energy that doesn't know what to do. And I'm for all I like, after I sold the house, like I never checked in on with the buyers. I'm like, hey, is the house still haunted? Like I never
Yeah.
checked in.
Are you hearing the
Maybe it was
doorbell
just for
ring
me.
like crazy?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I mean, because for instance, like when my dad was playing with the TV and the microwave, like that didn't last forever. After a while, it went away. So I think that the energy hangs around, but it dissipates after a period of time. So, you know,
Yeah. I
there
mean,
it is.
there's that. People have talked about things being residual in a sense,
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
much like how you say energy. So it's almost like the energy was so strong in that moment. There's like a timestamp in
Mm-hmm.
there. So
Yeah.
every day at this time, this is going to happen. And
Yeah.
it's not that it's like an intelligent haunting. It's just an energy timestamp in that area. So
Mm-hmm.
every day at
Yeah.
midnight, you'll hear the doorbell ring.
Yeah. Dude, jeez. Yeah. But anyway, so yeah. Anyway, so that's my experience with the paranormal.
Yeah.
Like, sadly, I haven't run into UFOs or cryptids or anything like that. That's as close as I've gotten outside of like stuff that I make up in my own stories and movies.
Yeah.
So
You
Anyway,
didn't
but
have any of those moments where it's while I was working on the movie, light
yeah,
bulbs were popping and this was going on.
yeah, I whenever I see something that makes me go, it's actually
Hmm.
on the flip side. It's actually like good stuff or like weird coincidences. And I'm the opposite of like wiggy woo woo guy, but I think that there is a certain energy that you gather around you when you try to do something like that. So again, speaking to death metal, amazing benefits came my way while I was pulling that movie together. And I think that, part of it's coincidence, part of it is just like, if you're working on making a movie, people want to help you make it. But it's like, some of it was just like, it was so out of left field. I'm just like, this feels almost like kind of a gift or a prize. I think that challenges are often more of a test than anything else to find out like how if you want something and how badly you want it, and if you prove to kind of yourself and quote unquote the universe, then there's like if you climb over that rock, then there's a treasure chest on the other side. So, or at least that's one way that I try to frame my life experience to maintain sanity.
Did you dive into anything? Because like death metal deals with like a curse.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you dive into like the way curses work, and or was it just something that like you cooked together when coming
No,
up with the concept?
that yeah, and yeah, that one was the core of it was haunted recording studio, and then you
Hmm.
go, okay, well, how's a recording studio get haunted? And I thought, and again, like I was thinking along the lines of Evil Dead. So I'm just like, well, rather than have it be like a standard ghost type thing where it's like something awful happened here a long time ago and now the ghosts are hanging around, because I thought, well, I mean, if that was the case, then why don't all the bands who record here get hassled by these spirits? I'm like, yeah, this has to be a unique situation to this band, this recording studio. So I'm like, okay, maybe it's like in Evil Dead, one of the characters does something that kind of calls down, this darkness onto them. Now, that's when I started, I even kind of name check Robert Johnson, the idea of the other kind of core of the story was, evil can't create anything. It can only corrupt something that has been created by good. And so with that, in the sense of the evil that exists in death metal, it's the corruption of the main character, Ivan, his ambition. He wants to be a very, he's a very talented guy. He's very driven. He really wants to be successful. And so he goes down this dark path as the darkness, answers him, and it corrupts something that is on the face good, which is ambition. He wants to be successful. And, not because he wants to, rich and famous, not to die. He just wants a very simple desire, which is just to be a working musician. And again, it kind of goes back to, back when it echoes my own experiences when I was playing bass in bands. I'm just like, man, I would give anything if like one of these bands would take off and got to like, be a rock star. Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah.
It's kind of like playing to that thought process of like, all right, well, you would do anything, huh? What do you mean by anything? Does anything mean selling your soul? How about selling your friend's souls? How about that? Will you do that? Is that what anything means? So, that's kind of where the story goes. But because I also needed a heart, because if ultimately the story isn't about the human experience and we have the heart between Shadia and Ivan, and it's mostly their story, this kind of doomed, love that they have. Because I mean, if you don't have heart, if you're not actually talking about humans doing stuff, then it's just like people getting their heads chopped off, which is fun to watch, but it's also very one-dimensional in a way, and look, weirdly enough, I actually don't find it very scary. Like I can appreciate movies where it's like there's a lot of gore for just the artistry that goes into
Yeah.
making those effects, but if there's not like a story or characters that like I can kind of grip with, then I'm kind of half watching it out of the corner of my eye while I'm doing something else, kind of a deal.
Yeah, it's like the roller coaster aspect that you talked about. It's like you're going up, but then you kind of just stayed going
Yeah,
going
like,
straight as you go through.
it's like, dude, he got cut in half with a chainsaw, and you go, okay, cool, right on. But if it's like, if you're, really invested in the characters there, it's like, oh no, I hope she doesn't get her head cut off with a chainsaw. It's like, that's why like two of my favorite horror movies are Shining and The Exorcist, because I ultimately, both of them, if you take away the ghosts or the demon, you still have basically a drama. It's a family
Yeah.
drama. It's, The Exorcist is at core a mother trying to help her sick child and trying to figure out how to cure her kid. And, The Shining is basically like, what if daddy has an alcohol problem and he's not himself, and daddy is losing his mind. It's like, and mother and young son have to deal with this, very harrowing situation. If you took away the ghosts, it would still be a very effective story. If you took away the demon and exorcist, it would still be a very effective story. So it's like, you start with characters, start with their experiences, and then you go, yeah, now let's yell boo at the audience. Now let's cut
Yeah.
people's heads off with chainsaws. Come for the chainsaws, stay for the humanity.
Yeah, I definitely understood that going through. Especially there's a scene where they're around, like sitting outside, and she's playing the guitar and singing.
Yeah.
There's that scene. I think for me showed where the heart kind of was in the movie.
Yeah, because they're friends who enjoy playing music with each other, and it's like I didn't want to like put all of this negativity on their music. I wanted to have like one scene where they just like hanging out together. They're not bickering. The music that they make together is a source of enjoyment. Because the audience is like, if they're just these miserable musicians, just put the guitar down, go do something else.
Yeah.
But we need, and especially because, Shadi is also very talented. And I thought that it would be also deeply amusing for her to play, a death metal song around a campfire on her ukulele. I'm just like, oh, that would be a cute scene to happen.
Yeah.
To her credit, she did 6 takes at like 3 a.m.
Really.
with a face full of campfire smoke. And she's indestructible, man. She did a great job.
But those are all for like the love of like the filmmaking process. People who in that testament, it's somebody doing what they love to do, right?
Yeah, I mean, and again, like it was, very challenging to shoot. That's like, we were shoving as much movie as we could through our budget, a very limited budget and very limited time. No one complained. Everyone gave it 100%. I couldn't have asked for a better, team around me. It was, I to this day, I'm deeply grateful for, everyone who worked on that project. So yeah,
I would imagine so.
but I mean, yeah, flashing forward to From the Shadows, we had my producing partners at the time, and I still one of the producing partners I still work with. We had and again, kind of in the same way that like death metal came together because of locations. Same deal with From the Shadows, where like we ran across it was still COVID was still going on. It was like 22, I want to say, so like kind of late days COVID, but still COVID.
Okay.
Anyway, so we hooked up with an opportunity to shoot something on the campus of Fairleigh Dickinson. And see, here's the thing is like no one could get any independent films made during COVID because force majeure insurance was sky high. Like you couldn't get the budgets to make sense. So no one was shooting anything. And like out of nowhere, it's like, I mean, if we could shoot on a college campus, then the college, we would be under the umbrella of the college's existing insurance. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. Now suddenly this might come together. And we had access to this giant old house that they have on the campus. It was built in the 20s. It's this giant, beautiful mansion, basically. And again, it's like, I was writing a story to the location and the circumstances of shooting. In the case of From the Shadows, just, I was trying to think of something that we'd shoot during COVID. So like everyone had to be separate and, we had to kind of shoot around, that challenge. And I had just seen a movie called Host. I don't know if you're familiar with this film, but it's like basically shot during COVID. It's like, some friends get on like a Zoom call and they do a seance and the seance goes awry. And so now they get hassled by demons. And I thought, aha, that's something that we could shoot with COVID is it's a call. It's a Zoom call that goes, the supernatural gives everyone a hard time. And obviously it's not going to be a seance because Host did that. So it's like, all right, well, what is it? And I had also recently watched a documentary about a cult called Nixium, I want to say. So I thought, oh, you know what? Maybe it's maybe it's like almost like a death cult, like almost like a Jonestown kind of a thing, where like there was like kind of a larger cult. They did some big suicide murder disaster kind of a deal, and there were survivors. And we have a journalist who is interviewing the survivors about the cults, and maybe something from their past is tracking them down. While they're so it's like we kind of by pieces like that the core idea of that story came together. It's like, okay, well, we have to shoot during COVID. We have to shoot in this one big house. What kind of story can we tell? Maybe it's something like this. Maybe it's that. So we were able to shoot like even though all of the characters are in like different places, they're just in different parts of this giant mansion. So
Yeah.
like one guy's in the basement, one guy, another person is in the library, another person's up in this bedroom, you know. And that was another very challenging shoot, but we were able to get Bruce Davison and Keith David plays our antagonist, which was fantastic.
Yeah.
So
I
I
was like,
was
what?
I was very, very happy. Selena and Dews, and again, we had, kind of in the same way that Rex Guy on Death Metal dropped out and we had to replace him at the 11th hour. We had another star to play our lead, the journalist, and she dropped out like right before we got to start shooting. We had like 3 days to replace her, and
Wow.
luckily, yeah, I know it's like you, like literally the other producers and the director and we sat down and had a meeting, and I was like, all right, well, what do we do? And it's like, okay, so we went through the script and we're just like, all right, we're gonna carve out everything that we can shoot without her. But I mean, ultimately, this character is our lead. She's the star of the movie. So it's like, so we had like about 3 days worth of stuff that we could shoot without a lead. And so it's like, okay, we have 72 hours to find our replacement. Otherwise, we have to shut down and the movie's done. So day one goes by. We're pacing a hole in the floor in this hotel room, working the phones, calling people, trying to figure it out. Day two goes by. Finally, we wake up on day three, and it's like literally like because also it's like not only do we have to find someone by the end of day three, we have to give them time to get to set. So it's like so basically like we have like until like about 3 in the afternoon, at the absolute latest.
Yeah.
So day three, Mike Sargent is downstairs. He's shooting with the cast that we have, and we're upstairs in the hotel room, and it's like it's getting on like about 2 o'clock or so, and it's looking bad. And I go down to my hotel room and I pull up my phone and I get on Yelp, and into Yelp I type closest dive bar because it was literally my idea that's just like if we
Yeah.
don't find this person, I'm gonna call Uber and I'm gonna go to the closest dive bar. I'm just gonna curl up in the corner and get hammered. And like just as I was about to call that Uber, the phone rang in my hand. I'm like, hello? And it was my producing partner. He was like, we found her. Get your ass up here. It's like Selena Enduth was in Georgia at the time, and she jumped on a plane. She was on set the next day, and she killed it. So it's like, and again, you look for like, I'm not a wiggy woo guy, but it's like, sometimes you get these wild blessings, especially when
Yeah.
they're at, like right at the buzzer. And maybe that's coincidence. Maybe there's you know, maybe there's an energy looking out.
Yeah.
God loves fools and filmmakers, I guess. I don't know.
No, but I mean, like, I feel like everybody crushed it in that film as well.
Yeah, that's one that like see, here's the thing is like with death metal, I was able to kind of lean on the musical aspect to like really push the marketing of it. So we got a lot of really nice reviews. I was able to get a lot of interviews like this one. We got a lot of attention for again, a very small independent movie. We got a lot of marketing attention, and the bands that were involved in the project were very good about helping get the word out on social media, this, that, everything else. When it came to From the Shadows, I think we were leaning hard on the fact that we had, star names, in death metal, the stars are bands who are meaningful to the death metal community. It's like, oh, Incantations in this movie, Cannibal Corpse. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
But in From the Shadows, we had movie stars, and we thought that would like kind of automatically get us like the same or better marketing attention. And that was not quite the case. Like we had to kind of like fight our way from the back 20. It was however, we did get like one really good thread with Jallo Julian, who writes for Dread Central. And he's been, he's been a friend to my projects for like a while. Like I gave some attention to Death Metal, he gave some attention to Knife, and he wrote a really glowing review of From the Shadows because he got it's a very Lovecraftian movie. Like that one is like I dumped all my Lovecraft ness into that film. And like conceptually, it's kind of a combination of like 3 or 4 Lovecraft ideas. Like there's a little thing on the doorstep in there. There's a little this, in case of Charles Dexter Ward, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, So, anyways, and it's
Yeah.
like kind of like a cosmic horror at the end of it. So, anyways, some people like it.
No, I dug it just because I said it. And for me,
Yeah.
the things that I've dealt with personally when it came to like supernatural-esque things were shadow people, shadow creatures. Like
Hmm.
when one of the characters is like sleep paralysis, I dealt with sleep paralysis. I was like, that's me, you know?
Right. Well, I see here is the thing is I personally have never had to deal with that, but I've known people who have, and they've described their experiences to me. I also watched a documentary called The Nightmare, which is all about sleep paralysis, and ultimately was looking for my the core ideas was like kind of a Lovecraftian. There's like a little bit of fun beyond in there, but I wanted to explore a monster, quote unquote, that we haven't seen a million times. It's like there's a million vampire movies out there. I just made a demon movie with death metal, ghosts, werewolves, serial killers. Knife is basically a serial killer movie. It's a slasher. It's kind of like, what's something that we haven't seen a lot? And, just thinking about sleep paralysis and that documentary, I'm like, the shadow people that these people unfortunately see, they're haunted by. I mean, what if those guys are real? What if they are an expression of something from, a darker place? So I'm like, okay, yeah, let's use them. The shadow people. That's our monster. So, and it's also the idea that like Keith David's character has kind of not quite a deal with the devil, but it is like there are like some weird, I won't say repetitions between the two movies, but there are like some weird echoes. Like both of them involve, a character who kind of sells himself to the darkness in exchange for something
Yeah.
else. Even like down to like little stuff, like both movies have a female character who gets a wound that turns into a mouth.
Yeah. When I saw that, I was like, that is an awesome idea.
Yeah, it's like, and even when I wrote it in the script, I'm just like, okay, here's an idea. Like, we don't have to go this whole thing, but it's just like, if we can pull it off, then let's do it. And luckily, our effects on that show were done by Vincent Guastini, who's a brilliant, brilliant, super genius guy. And so, like, he looked at that in the script. He was just like, yeah, fuck it, let's do it. I know how to do it. I've got an idea. So, you know, so yeah, it's, so, and of course, like the mutations that Keith David goes through as his character keeps appearing. Spoiler alert, but
Yeah.
yeah, great, interesting, cool stuff. Yeah, so it's like ultimately it would be cool to explore From the Shadows further in sequels. That remains to be seen. But I would like to do more stories that involve the shadow people as antagonists. Like for instance, apparently there's a very recurring shadow person character, like a guy who wears a hat. That would
But
be
yeah,
cool
the
if
Hat
like we
Man.
get
Yeah.
the Hat Man. It's like, let's get that dude into a movie, stuff like that. So
Yeah,
yeah,
the way it's described is like he's kind of like the boss.
mhm.
He almost looks as that man who leads the room, who has his goons, and his goons are like these lesser
Right, yeah.
shadow creatures.
I
Yeah.
there have been a couple of movies that have also explored shadow people. There's one called Come True that I really liked a lot. Empty Man a little bit. There might be others I'm forgetting in a moment. Again, it's like we've seen 100 billion ghost movies. It's like, and see, here's the
Yeah.
thing, ultimately, to paraphrase Lovecraft, fear is the oldest and most powerful emotion of humanity, and fear of the unknown is the oldest and most powerful version of fear. And if you know what the monster is, there is a familiarity to that the audience goes, well, it's just that. I think that if the monster is something that the audience hasn't seen a million times before and they don't know what it can do, and what's going to go on with it, then there's an extra layer of mystery, which thereby leads to fear, or at least that's the intention.
Yeah. Yeah, the intro to this show, I think it's saying there's a force in all of us that science knows nothing about, the force of fear. And then
Mhm.
then the intro music kind of kicks in. And that's definitely one of those things of, especially when it comes to just the shadow things in general, is the main thing that people talk about
Mhm.
is the fear being so intense. The fear is intense.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, so it was From the Shadows was an attempt at, like, From the Shadows is kind of like a giant pile of ideas thrown into a blender, and I think that, like, some audiences have looked at, and there's like, I have no idea what's going on in this thing, and other people like Jello Julian is like, there's like, wow, this is unique. It's kind of an interesting film. So it's like, I mean, From the Shadows is one where just like we just kind of swung for it, man. We're just like, fuck it, let's
Yeah.
just make it. Let's just tell the story, and hopefully the audience kind of comes along for the ride. So and again, we have like great performances from Keith David and Selena Dews and Bruce Davison, and the younger cast who came from Shirley Dickinson. I mean, they all showed up and gave it 100%. They're all like very smart, very talented. It was. I mean, again, it's like, death metal. I can't be more grateful for the cast and crew. So yeah. So
Is there
luckily,
is
I've
there
never
any
been.
plans for you to do anything more with death metal within that realm? I mean, you kind of
Well, I mean, I already have ideas for death metal, what death metal 2 would be like. I already have ideas for what From the Shadows 2 would be like. So it's like, my focus right now is on Knife. I'm really trying to like push that one through, because again, like, we got really close to getting that one made. And so it's like, when you get that close to getting a movie made, it tells you that, like, it's a makeable movie, if that makes sense. And it's like, also in terms of concept, like, that's the one where people just kind of instantly get, and they kind of, they watch the short version and they're just like, oh yeah, this is cool. So it's like, and by
even
that,
even in that short version, it's I can see a unique take on that slasher
yeah,
genre.
'cause it's at the end of the day, it's like, in every slasher movie, you have a killer who picks up a weapon and goes and gives everyone a hard time. It's like, well, what if the killer is the weapon? It's a haunted object, So yeah, so it's like, and again, like, the short version is done very well in the festivals, and when it's played in festivals that I've been able to attend, the people that I've spoken to afterwards are like, what's going on with that? Are you making that? When is that shooting? I'm like, I'm working
Yeah.
on it, man. So yeah, it's like, I'm trying to shove Knife up the hill, and if we can get that one made, then I can, like, kind of, take a breath and look at death metal and From the Shadows and be like, all right, well, what do these sequels look like? But it's like, at the same time, like, I have other projects that, like, I have a werewolf project that is still in development that's really exciting. I have a sci-fi projects that I'm working on with a guy in Florida, and that's like almost like kind of a, I guess the short pitch would be Blade Runner meets The Matrix, where it's basically like, it's a near future situation. We have a detective who is investigating a murder mystery, and there's a virtual reality element to it. So he basically goes into virtual reality to gather clues and try to find out, who killed the victims. And so it's, and again, like Blade Runner, it's like more of a mystery thriller, but that has like some action beats along the way. So, but it's not like an
Yeah.
action movie. So and that's why, like, I kind of hesitate to use, it's like 95% Blade Runner, 5% The Matrix, because I don't want to say that's like a big kung fu
Yeah.
thing like The Matrix is.
You're not going to have people floating in the air and fighting like for about 15 minutes.
Yeah, yeah, the idea being that it's like, it's not like really crazy tech. It's just more of like, let's take the tech that exists right now and extrapolate it like maybe 20 years in the future. And along the way, we're kind of, exploring, themes of identity and morality, and when you feel like you can be in a virtual space and do whatever you want, you do maintain your morality, stuff like that. Yeah. It was so. I mean, that one's really exciting. And again, I have like other action projects that are always, that are always almost getting made, maybe, but it's like, those are like the bigger ones. They're like, tens of millions of dollars. So
Yeah.
obviously that's like a smaller bullseye. And in the meantime, I just make these horror films because that's what I like to do.
Yeah. Well, I would say for anybody like listening and watching, like I did watch the short for Knife, and it definitely, as even as I watched it, I was like, oh, that's new.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. I mean,
exciting.
it's fun. It's cool. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
grabbed I would pull together most of the same team that helped me to shoot Knife, and we shot a short for an anthology for a Blu-ray that I'm still kind of waiting to find out like exactly what's the next step with that one. But I mean, we shot it and it's ready to go. So it's like, for all I know, we'll have a short film and we'll have a piece of an anthology and a Blu-ray maybe this year, maybe. I
Yeah.
also shot another project in Wisconsin that's in post-production, and that one's another short film that is intended to be a proof of concept for a feature. I shot that one in Wisconsin, and that one is deep into post production. I think it should be done any minute now. So that one I'm actually not editing. I'm not doing anything with post production. So it's like, I'm not, that's one of the reasons why I like to edit my own stuff, is like, I know exactly where the project is after it's done.
Yeah.
And when I don't do the post production, like all I can do is like check in and be like, hey, how's it going?
Yeah.
Its own limbo.
If you want to let everybody know where they can find you, where they can find all your works again,
Oh, okay.
and then I'll
Yeah.
also add all of that into the description for the show.
Yeah, I'm actually currently working on my director's portal website right now. So I think within the next, 30 days or so, I'll have like Michael Kuciak director or whatever the hell it's going to be .com should be up. Because I've been very lazy in that regard. You need to have your own little website, but it's like, if you want to purchase a signed copy of Death Metal, there's deathmetalhorrormovie.com. If you can watch on YouTube, it's a little tough to track down because it's such a generic title, but it's like if you go Knife Michael Kuciak director horror movie, eventually you'll find it. Death Metal and it is on Tubi, it's on Screambox, it's on a bunch of other stuff. From the Shadows is on Tubi as well. So just watch the toothpaste commercial, and outside that, it's free. It's on Vudu, and you can rent it from Amazon, a bunch of places, So, it's like, if you track these movies down, they're both on streaming, very easily to find. So, and I think like if you dig a little bit deeper, you might be able to find like some of my older shorts, like Sweet 16, that Shadia from Death Metal is in, stuff like that. Anyways, so
Oh, sweet.
that's what I
Yeah,
got
and I'll
going
be
on.
sure to add everything into the description below.
Cool, man.
Mike, I want to say thank you for joining me on this episode. And to all those watching, listening, whatever you're doing, don't forget to ask questions and face your fears. Thanks for joining me and Mike on this episode of Induced Fear. Bye, everyone.